Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin Sokolov, and I'm here with my co-host, Ronnie Ward. We are not afraid to admit that sometimes your biggest threat isn't the competitor across town, but the smiling face across the conference table. Today, we're talking about one of the oldest and dirtiest parts of power, loyalty and sabotage. Specifically, how to tell who's really with you and who's just waiting for their chance to cash out. How's it going, Ron?
It's going great. They called me Ronnie as a boy. How did you?
I love it.
That caught me off guard there. I didn't
Ronnie
even write that
Ward. It just rolls off the tongue. Real nice.
One time I was this is terrible, folks. Please forgive me ahead of time. I was the guest speaker at an Eagle Scout ceremony, and the kid that introduced me had a speech impediment. So he said, this is terrible. He goes,
I know where this is going.
Yeah, he goes, he introduced me, read a little bit of my bio, and he said, "We're pleased to welcome Wani Wood."
Oh,
he called me Wani Wood, and I had to go
together?
up. I had to go up and speak, and I did have I could have chuckled a little bit.
How did you keep it together? What do you do when you want to laugh?
I think it's something bad.
Speaking?
I'm thinking something bad. One time I was leading a federal law enforcement graduation. I'm not going to tell our listeners what I imagined, but this was one of those weird things that it was like between a holiday, and we always had the national anthem and we always had the colors presented. Mm-hmm. Everything went wrong. So I told the coordinator, the class coordinator, one of our staff, we don't have anyone to do the national anthem. We even had someone complain on the violin, and he was gone. So I said, see if we got a singer among the students. It was double class 48. I'm thinking we'll have a singer. He comes back to me, we got a singer. I said, thank goodness. So we get in there. I kid you not, Kristin, this guy could not carry a tune in a bucket.
Oh, no.
Going back to the old Southern phrase that you had to look up. He was terrible. I'm not kidding. So I'm standing there, like my hand on my chest. I'm looking at the flag, and I'm literally about to bust out laughing.
That would be very difficult.
Yeah, I had to think of something morbid I'd seen on the news, like to try to hold it together. Because what it was is I could see some of the new graduates, the officers graduate. I could tell some of them were holding back laughter.
Yeah.
And then,
that's very hard. When
but it gets better. So I survive, right? And my boss from D.C., Nancy, was there. And I told you we always had a great relationship. It was rare she got to come down. So we all went over to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center has a bar, the No Wake Zone, or the 10-7 Club. So they changed the name. So we go over there, and she gets to sit with some of our staff. You know, it's great. And nobody said a word. We're sitting there, I swear to you. She goes, how about that national anthem? When she said that, we exploded because we were all afraid to say anything. And we went on.
Yeah, you'd held it in.
We went on for like 5 minutes.
Oh my
so
gosh.
It turns out we record graduations. So I got my IT guy to get me a snippet of that. So one day,
I need to hear this.
One day I knew Nancy was, I don't have it now, but one day Nancy, I knew she was having a lot of stuff going on. So I sent her that recording, and she sent back, like just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah.
So anyway, the poor guy, I said if he ever knew we had sent that recording around.
Be mortified.
Oh my gosh, yes. But
who puts their hand up when they can't carry a tune in a bucket?
Well, it's like those people. Remember American Idol when it first came out, and people would come in? I think he might have been told, and like maybe his parents said he could sing, or he thought he could sing. I can't imagine that he did that as mockery because he was so serious about it.
Yeah.
So I think he thought he could sing. So we're always solution-minded. If you can't sing, don't do the national anthem.
No, don't. That's bad. I know. It's like these parents, they mean well, but come on. You got to also live in reality.
No kidding. All right, let's jump in.
Thank you for that Don't worry, Ron.
Yeah, you're welcome. I look like a total, I'm making fun of someone singing the national anthem and the speech impediment. I'm horrible. If I were you people, I would go to a different podcast right now.
Oh my gosh. Hey, you know what? I understand it because I'm like you. I have a keen sense of humor and I have to hold back laughter regularly because I just see humor in things that other people may not. So yeah, you have to have that skill ready. I used to think of my grandpa. This is really bad, but both my grandpas were cremated, and I used to have to think of that process.
Yeah, to make
And
sure
that
you
would
don't laugh
take
in
me out of
public.
it real quick. So that does work.
Yeah, thanks, Kristin. I'm so depressed now. Wani Ward is depressed. All right,
Oh my God.
here we go. Let's get serious. We're getting back to this betrayal, right? This Judas principle. Every leader has that moment where someone they trusted turns into a headline in their leadership lesson book, usually under the chapter titled, I should have seen that coming and I should have put that in my book.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, betrayal rarely shows up wearing a villain's cape. Most of the time, walks in with coffee, compliments, befriends you, and then things start to change. And every leader from Jesus to Julius Caesar to today's CEOs eventually meets their Judas. And I certainly did when I was Academy Director, Kristin.
Absolutely. I'm curious for you, because for me, when I think of like people that worked under me, a little bit of that betrayal, but I would say the strongest memory that I have is betrayal from one of my leaders. And I'm curious if you've ever experienced that.
Yes. Well, there's a chapter in my book called Working for an Idiot. So yes, I have. But I am still not permitted. There was NDAs involved. I can't discuss really details of it, but this was legitimately someone that, before I was Academy Director, I thought we were friends. All that stuff happened, and it was horrific. It was emotionally draining. The betrayal of trust, it's still hard for me to talk about and think about even today. So it can be very difficult.
Absolutely. I'll just share. I have, like I mentioned, experienced it from a leader. And generally when that happens, even when it's someone that works under you, what I have found is they are incompetent in one form or another, and they project the incompetence onto someone else to make them look good. And it does eventually catch up with them, but a lot of people fall for it meanwhile. So I think that's something to be aware of, that it's not always your leader. It's not always your counterpart. It could be someone that works for you. It can be any of them.
Yeah, I've got a friend. This just happened. It happens all the time. People will work for a company. They build relationships, then they leave, start their own company, and take half the clients with them. That happened to a friend of mine. It's a store, and he was going to open in a different location. He sent this person to do all the groundwork, and this person had already learned every part of the store because the plan was this person would eventually take over, buy my friend out. And so when he was going to do the recon and all of that for the new property, he all of a sudden he sees an advertisement. The guy took leave, sees an advertisement. He opened the store.
Oh my gosh.
And this just happened.
That is betrayal in the strongest sense. Like, that is wild. Oh, well, I have a story I'm going to share that happened this year regarding Kohl's. I wanted to find a brand that everybody had heard of because it can happen large or small. So I'll be sharing that in a little bit here. But we have to think about the fact that betrayal doesn't always look like 30 pieces of silver, right? Looking back. Sometimes it's silence in a meeting, or a smile that doesn't reach the eyes, or that misunderstanding, I'm saying that with quotes, that somehow very conveniently shifts blame.
Yeah, so today we're going to break that down. We're going to look at the psychology of loyalty, the subtle signs of betrayal, and we're going to throw in some modern stories that we want to keep you interested in this great topic.
Yeah, it's
so
important.
First, let's look at the psychology of loyalty. At its core, loyalty is about shared risk. People love to stand beside success, but very few stand beside struggle. And I remember when John F. Kennedy, the Bay of Pigs, when he was talking about, he was like, success has 1,000 brothers, but failure is an orphan. And that is so true. When things look good, it's going good, and they are benefiting, people can be more loyalty. And then, Kristin, we've talked a lot about oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical. And there's a little bit of that happens. You get a good friend, you do the bro hug or a hug, and you're building up oxytocin. You get a little bit of dopamine around that person, and trust builds.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are like in friendships, and I do see why actors and celebrities, and where it's very difficult for them to maintain healthy relationships, because so many people are befriending them just for what may be in it for them. And there's going to be that with successful business people as well. And, loyalty, talking about loyalty, it's not free. It's emotional currency, the trust component, consistency, vulnerability. It's earned in the small moments that most leaders overlook.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Kristin, I told you when I lost the title that I had with the government, I found out who my real friends were, because there was a lot of people that were all about me, and then I didn't hear from them again. And it's a rude awakening, but of course, if you're secure and you understand this, you work through it and move on. But there's no doubt that it exists. It happens all the time. So let's look at 3 archetypes leaders deal with. You've got the loyalist, and they value the mission and you. Those people, they're just loyal. And a lot of it is their upbringing. That comes into play. They're taught to be loyal. They're taught to be patriotic. There's these fundamental values that they have. But then there's the opportunist. And they value themselves and the proximity to power. These are name droppers, and they will work their way, man. They want to get, they want to meet the person in power. They want to get to know them. And that's why, by the way, that people are so infatuated with celebrities. And, there's just not a lot of substance sometimes. But here's the worst one. This is the pretender. And that's, you and I have talked about brown nosers before on the podcast, but they performs loyalty to access power. And these people tend to be more manipulative than the opportunist. They go into it knowing that they are going to manipulate and maybe usurp this authority for their own good.
They are the freaky one. At least, it's funny. I had an opportunist reach out to me on Instagram the other day, because I did have a picture. I have a picture on my Instagram of me with Dr. Ben Carson.
Yes.
And a couple of years ago, I moderated his event. So yes, I have a picture with him up on stage. This person thought I was BFFs with Dr. Ben Carson, and he immediately was like, "Hey, how's it going? I love what you do." But ultimately, within a few sentences, he was wanting Ben Carson's phone number. I'm like, "You think I have that?" He has handlers, right? So, and then after I told him I don't have his personal contact info, I gave him ways to go around getting in touch with him. And he completely stopped reaching out. And I'm like, I kind of laughed to myself. I'm like, that's the opportunist. And at least he wasn't pretending and taking weeks to cultivate a rapport, right? He basically, it is what it is with him. I appreciated that, but we always need to be on the lookout for that pretender, because it's the opportunist dressed up a bit.
We call that wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. There's a scary stat. Nearly 70% of workplace betrayals come from high trust relationships. So translation, it's the people you let close that burn you, generally speaking, not strangers.
Yeah, it's the old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah.
That's how we should look at it.
Yes.
Because betrayal requires access, if someone doesn't know your playbook, they can't weaponize it. So these manipulative people, they're studying you, and they're getting to know your strengths, weaknesses, and they're working their way in, but they definitely have an ulterior motive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, this is the dirty truth, right? Loyalty gets tested more in wins than in losses. So when you're rising, people around you start thinking If they made it, why can't I? What do they have that I don't? And, jealousy is loyalty's silent assassin.
I love that. It really is. And gosh, did I see that play out in all areas, but in the government, I definitely saw that. I saw people not get promoted and go into the shell and pout and all this, but others would just manipulate to get promoted. I always joked, me and another branch chief, I always said, when we were about to promote someone, it's a big deal. It's pretty decent money. So everyone would get friendly for a few weeks. So I told another branch chief, I said, we need to always have a promotional opportunity so everyone will like us for a while. And he and I would laugh because we could see right through it.
Yeah, just put a posting up, just throw one up, even though you don't have a spot.
Yeah, and when you said jealousy is loyalty's silent assassin, psychology calls this the social comparison theory. People compare themselves to whoever is closest. So your protege can quickly turn into your competitor. And, some people are more competitive than others, but this happens all the time.
Yeah. I've definitely seen that play out. The most dangerous betrayal always comes from proximity. And I mentioned earlier the Kohl's story. And yes, we are talking about the Kohl's clothing store. So this happened in 2025. I wanted to find something very recent. This is about Kohl's CEO loyalty swap. So let me just set this for you. So basically, I think people need to wrap their head around it. If you think betrayal only happens in middle management, let's zoom out to the C-suite. So like I said earlier this year, Kohl's hired a new CEO, shiny, promising. I've seen that before in banking, praised as the turnaround guy. Everybody in the company rallies around him. Loyalty at the top. They're thinking we finally have our guy, except they didn't. Within a few months, the board removed him. Why? He was quietly funneling business towards a vendor whose surprise happened to be personally connected to him. Not illegal. I think that's important to point out here, but unethical. Yes. Not public, but intentional. Not loyalty to the company, and that's what should matter the most. Loyalty to himself and his inner circle. And here's where leaders get burned. Betrayal doesn't always look like someone stabbing you in the back. Sometimes it's somebody stabbing the mission as a whole. Those are harder to detect. The vision, the team, the customer trust. Betrayal by misusing trust and title while smiling in the boardroom and pretending to think about what's best for the company.
Gosh, that is so true. That's kind of the classic corporate version of I'm on your side as long as it benefits me.
Yeah.
There's people like that. And Kristin, you mentioned like contractors. There is so much fraud and nepotism that happens in this bidding process. I remember, we had some decent sized contracts, and I can remember someone calling me and trying to figure out how much we're willing. See, we would put a cap internally. So we're putting out what's called requests for quotes, RFQs. So we're putting that out and people have to bid. So one person, because they'd met me before, called, and I realized quickly they're trying to get me to tell them how much we're willing to go. Because you can underbid, like let's say I'm willing to pay $100,000, you might come in at 70 and barely make money when you could have got 90. So that's what they were looking at. But I literally cut it off. I said, I can't give out that information. So they realized, even though they didn't blatantly ask, I knew where they were heading, and I just cut it off because that is definitely an area where you see a lot of deception. Now, it's not necessarily what we're talking about, but it still exists for sure.
Oh, it does. And it's funny, as you were saying that, I was thinking about one time where I got hosed because this is small scale, but I was having a cake made for one of my kids' birthdays, and I like to do a big fancy cake for them. And instead of giving me a price or a quote, she said, "What are you looking to spend?" And I was like, "No more than 100." So she's like, 100, perfect. And I'm like, what a dumbass for me to respond with that. So now anytime I've put my feelers out there for a quote, I never, ever give that away. I'm waiting for them to give me their quote. Yeah, don't make that mistake. You would think someone like me would be smart enough to avoid that. But yeah, so it happens to all of us, my friends.
We found a lot of stories. We'll just mention this quickly.
Yeah.
A couple guys, Evan and Marcus. And this really is a masterclass in betrayal. So Marcus plays the long game, humble, charming, helpful, always saying, I just want to do what's best for the company. These people can win an Academy Award. Don't think they're not really good at it.
Yeah.
Keep us going on this.
Yeah, they really could. Betrayal rarely starts with lies. It starts with believable half-truths spoken with sincerity.
Yeah, exactly. This psychological studies show that people trust negative information about leaders 2.5 times faster than positive information because doubt is easier to believe than excellence. And I've said before, Kristin, there's more negative words in the dictionary than positive. So how crazy is that?
It really is. It really is. So wait, I have to read that. So people trust negative information about leaders 2.5 times faster than positive information. That's really, if you think about it, it's sad. That really shows how our brains are wired.
Yeah, I just heard a leader who on YouTube, he was given the story and he said, I've waited like 2 years, but he said that this was a ministry situation. He said that when he resigned, later he talked to someone and the board literally told him, we were going to accuse you of adultery because we called that the nuclear option to get rid of you.
Wow.
When he said that he had never stepped on his wife or anything, they were going to accuse him. He said, we knew that would create just enough of a story you would have to resign.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. The fact that they actually admitted that, and that's sick.
I thought the same thing. So anyway, back to Evan and Marcus here. 3 months later, boom, Evan gets restructured. Marcus gets the job. The division collapses under his ego. So basically, Marcus starts in subtle ways. He's going, and he would just plant these little seeds. He would go, Evan is really overwhelmed with all this responsibility. Didn't say he can't do it, none of that. He's overwhelmed. Whew, man, Evan is really struggling today. Evan doesn't seem to understand the mission. They start with these little generic statements and then it just moves in. So finally, Marcus ends up getting Evan has to step aside. Marcus takes the place, but guess what? Because Marcus had no substance, the agency folded and Evan goes off and does something else and does fine with his life. He recovered because he had morals. He had a moral compass and values.
I've even, it's interesting on that. I've, in the workplace, heard people go, I haven't seen, let's say, like Sandy. I haven't seen Sandy around the office. Have you? And then I'll, for me, because I just don't play into that, I'll be like, yeah, not my problem. If it's not someone on my team, it doesn't bother me. But I've definitely heard people try to start stirring the pot with little remarks like that.
Kristin,
and
I wanted to share this because this is really cool. I knew, not cool, but disgusting. I knew someone who would couch things in a positive, but they're undermining someone. They would do this. John responded to your email. Wow. Doesn't respond to mine. Or he usually doesn't respond to people. So you're playing on that person's ego. You must be special, but they're really doing it to undermine John.
Right, exactly. It's funny. Somebody did that today to me.
Today?
Like, thank you for today on Instagram, because I'm part of these groups, these big groups of people, and we all share each other's content. But anyhow, there's 2 administrators, me and another guy, me and a guy. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to edit that, Ron. Anyways, Ron's shaking his head. I haven't told you. But no, so
you're starting a podcast without me? I'm kidding.
This person reached out and they were like, I'm never able to get a hold of so-and-so, so thank you for getting back to me. And, I'm just like, oh, hey, that's what I'm here for. Didn't play into that either. But yeah, people do that. Sometimes they don't even realize they're doing that, but they're doing that. And it does sit with people.
So, folks, we never say this, but Kristin and I, this is what we're dealing with. We're so grateful that you've made our podcast popular. So now, you guys didn't get to hear this. Kristin didn't know I was going to share it. But now, my email's attached, which, when we started all this, we should have attached Kristin's. That's all I'm saying. But
Ron's overwhelmed. Ron's overwhelmed.
We really get bombarded with people who want to be guests. And don't get me wrong, that goes with the territory. We don't judge them, but the point is they're selling something. So they want to come in because we sell this product, and we're not going to be an infomercial for someone. So Kristin and I have kind of wised up, and we even had the conversations. It's got to do something for us. It's got to do something for our audience.
Yeah. Things
like that. But that's not manipulation, but it's still when something grows and this podcast has gotten popular, then you just watch, man, the flies are going to swarm. So you just got to be wise and be aware of that. Okay, Kristin.
Exactly. Well, a little peek into that conversation. The bottom line is Ron and I have done 125 episodes on our own. We don't need anybody else. So I was telling Ron, I'm like, they need us. So what's in it for us to have them on and highlight them and give them airtime? I know that might sound bad to some, but anyone in business will understand that. And so you have to think that way to protect yourself and to protect your brand. You're not giving it away, right? We're not a nonprofit here. It's really important that you think that way, maybe more nonprofits should think that way. Maybe they do, Ron. I don't know. But you have to think strategy all the time.
No, you do. And so our audience understands, we're in no way being arrogant about this, but there are companies.
Ron thinks I sounded arrogant.
You pay them. I'd like to apologize for Kristin.
There's nothing wrong with confidence.
If you're listening, I can only see half her head on the screen right now. I'm kidding. No, we are confident. But the point is, the reason we even started this podcast was that's what was happening to a ton of the leadership podcasts. They bring on these people who are the expert in one little area, or at least they say they are, and then they're really promoting their brand, their product. So we want something, and we mean this, that you guys would enjoy, and that would benefit the podcast. So we're looking at it holistically, and we plan to continue to do that when we bring on guests. We love having guests, but we want to be very selective and make sure that it's good for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, we're going to go to commercial. This episode has been sponsored by Preparation H. I'm just joking. That's what you don't hear when you listen to us, right? So that's where it's coming.
I'm starting a new podcast, The Dirtiest Side of Leadership.
Oh, my gosh.
So
I'm in rare form.
Yeah. Test number 1. Who brings truth, not flattery? If someone only praises you, they're managing perception, not contributing value. We've talked about it before. Brown nosers tell you what you want to hear. Loyalty isn't always saying yes. Loyalty is saying what you need to hear. You got to have those people around you. I call them contrarians. Healthy contrarians, of course, but they're going to give you a contradictory view sometimes that you need to hear.
That was a world-class pivot, Ron. I just have to point that out. Nice
From
work.
Preparation H
He's like,
to truth, not flattery.
Oh, he's like, what did I get myself into?
I thought we'd gotten a sponsor. I didn't know. I got excited, Kristin. And then it's Preparation H, which is a great product, I'm sure.
I loved watching your face as I did that.
Okay.
Okay, back to reality here. Okay, so let's talk about test number 2. You just did test 1. Watch how people act when you're not in the room. If they defend your name in rooms where you're absent, that's loyalty. Ron, how would somebody gauge this? They're not in the room. How are they going to gauge what's happening?
It will eventually get back to you, because I've had both things get back to me. I've had people go, man, I spoke to John. He was singing your praises. Mm-hmm. And so it does take time. You're not going to hear every little thing unless you put a bug in the office. I'm joking.
Yeah.
So
no, I think that's,
if you are alert and attentive, these things will get around. And if someone is undermining you, that would always get around as well. So,
yeah.
All right, another thing to look at is crisis reveals character. When things break, who shows up, who hides, who suddenly wasn't aware. Oh, I didn't realize. In other words, they share the credit, take the blame. True supporters will do that. But if they're brown nosers, if they're going to undermine you, they're going to act like, oh, I didn't know it. I told you the story once, Kristin. I'll be quick. One time, I had to go against all my section chiefs, 5 of them, and it was very difficult. And there were some silent people, but there were some who were frustrated with my decision. So it was one of the moments I'll never, ever forget, because they went behind my back and got some documents. And I'd never done this before, but I hit the table, and it really sent shockwaves. And I told them to get out.
I like that.
I said, get out. I kid you not. One of them circles back at like 4:00 and says, you know, I want you to know that I agree with you. I said, well, where were you? Where were you at 10 a.m.? Because they didn't speak up. So that one ticked me off, and I said something. That was the best, worst moment of my career. When I hit the table, I didn't know I was going to, like, it wasn't planned.
I think that's hot.
I lost it, and I went, bam! And I said, you went behind my back and got the top. I said, get out. I need to think. And everybody just sat there. I said, get out. Like it was a scene off a movie.
I love it.
And it was a turning point in me being respected and all that. But in your brain, you're going, oh my God, they're on the phone with DC. I'm going to get fired.
I know.
Like that was overboard. They're going to say I'm violent. They were afraid. Like all this stuff is running through your mind.
Yeah.
But it turned out to really be a strong moment. So sometimes you gotta, I'm joking. You don't want to punch anybody, but
a wooden table.
Rescue me, Kristin, rescue me.
No, I actually love this because I could like visualize it, and I think there's badassery mixed into it. I think it's a big wake up. So I am curious. I think, my mind goes to, okay, if I did that, like you just said, you'd be like, oh, is HR going to be on the phone with me here soon, right? But I think the best way to, when you do something like that maybe you didn't expect from yourself, I think it's best to play it off. I'm curious how you handled that. Like not apologize right away, right? Like not, I'm sorry I did that, right? Because then that just waters down your whole message. Curious how you handled that.
There was no apologies, I can assure you. And for about an hour, I wanted to call them in one by one and strangle them. That's how mad I was. It was the ultimate betrayal from the group, but I was new into the position, so I had a lot of people thought they were smarter and better, and
Yeah.
So, and it was a big decision, but guess what? It turns out, I'm trying to think if there's a way I could help you understand this and our audience understand this. When you are at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, they want to teach your program because they get money, they get budget for it. So I always kept them at bay because we were in the judicial branch of government. So I said, we have different acronyms, a different mission, all that. So we basically were able to maintain a lot of our program, but it turned out there was a fundamental firearm class that we are the same as every law enforcement. And we were going to, if we didn't give it to them, and I took it to the highest levels, we were going to lose status, which means we didn't get preference on equipment. We didn't get a lot of things. I even met with, it's the only time I ever met with the previous academy director. I had lunch with her and asked her opinion, and she goes, I knew this was going to happen. It was nothing but a handshake. So I was trying to find something in writing that we could, there was nothing. So we were going to lose our status. And so guess what? 3 months later, of course, everybody saw that if we hadn't have, and that status proved to like rescue us, all of a sudden everybody's memory was wiped clean. They all wanted to do this. And by the way, as a leader, sometimes you can't say, I told you so, or how you like me now. That's what I wanted to do. But I can tell you,
that would be tough.
After I hit the table and told them to get out, there was no apologies. There was no nothing. I didn't even see them for like 2 days. Everybody stayed away from me. What I was waiting on, though, now the first hour, I didn't give a crap. I was still mad, and I tried to focus, and just do my work. But now, slowly, I had business with them. Like, a couple days later, someone would have to come see me, and they would be a little bit cautious coming into my office, and I would just take care of business and go on.
Good.
Because, if you apologize, and I do this in coaching, it's called groveling, and you will minimize the impact of anything you had. But I will tell you, I was relieved. I waited for 2 or 3 days waiting on the phone call from DC.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. No, I think you handled it well. Yeah, because you can't. The minute you apologize, I've made a decision as a leader and then apologized. And I only did that one time because I wasn't apologizing because I actually made a mistake. It was because my decision wasn't sitting well with the majority of my team. It doesn't mean it was the wrong decision. It just didn't sit well with them. And this is early on in my leadership career. I then apologized for it, and I did lose credibility from that.
Yeah.
And you have to really check yourself and sit with it. If that's your decision, you have to sit with it and own it, and you did the right thing.
I want to put one disclaimer because there's still a couple people that listen to this podcast.
Don't punch tables. Perfect.
No, I'm saying I made a ton of, that's a cool story. It's a badass story, but there were plenty of times that I made mistakes, and I listened to staff and said, yeah, you're right. This was what I considered betrayal. And I considered it was a whole different category than us disagreeing, even if they vehemently disagreed. This was betrayal. This was Judas's kiss. So that's why I responded the way I did.
Yeah, no, understandably. All right, this is time we're going to go into rapid fire reality checks for leaders. And Ron, feel free to interject with anything you would like during these. But I put these together because I thought that we like to do takeaways for those listening. That way you're leaving with something that you can apply to your life. So loyalty isn't agreement, it's alignment.
Nothing to add there. That's great.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Disagreement doesn't equal disloyalty. That is a big one there. That is a big one.
Yeah, and here's the difference. I would like to make a distinction. If let's say that you're you're like the CEO and I disagree, we have a discussion, but when we walk out of the room, I have to align. It's like if you look if you look at a chain of command in military or anything, you might disagree, but when it's time to go on the battlefield, you have to align. And that's what this is saying. You still have to be loyal to the mission because you don't get to make every decision. That's why I tell people, if you want to get promoted, you're going to have more influence. But if you don't, you may have to suck it up sometimes.
Right. Absolutely. And then that can be applied into personal life also, because I know for a short moment there, my husband and I were doing marriage counseling. This is like over 10 years ago. And we would disagree while we were discussing whatever grievances we had. But then we left holding hands and getting along, right? It's like we were able to air our grievances. And then we understood we're both working towards the same ultimate goal, which is a good marriage.
That's right.
So you can apply that in personal life or your career. Something else here, loud loyalty is often fake loyalty. Have you ran into that?
Yeah. The person who brags on you the most sometimes can be undermined.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Like you're the BFF or people. What do you think about people that act like, oh, me and the boss are really tight, and they make up little stories or scenarios where they're getting extra time with the boss. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's manipulation and name dropping, and people do that. I know, I've name dropped plenty of times. It's exciting that you actually know someone that's maybe doing something big. It's very tempting, and we're all human.
Yeah, absolutely. Real loyalty is quiet, consistent, and boring.
Yeah. So let's look at a brain fact. When people feel powerless, they seek influence through information. That's where gossip, sabotage, and whisper networks are born. And that's not the only reason, but when people feel powerless, a lot of times they don't even like themselves. They're projecting. They're insecure. All of the things, we do some things called shadow training in some instances in coaching, and we might do an episode on that, Kristin.
Yeah,
but a shadow is something, it's when your external actions do not match your internal feelings. And to be happy, fulfilled, add value, and have integrity, as best you can, you need to align your internal feelings with external actions. One of the biggest cases where that is someone who's afraid to ever speak up. So they harbor this bitterness, but they're always afraid to take up for themselves. And that's one of the primary things that we deal with. And they don't realize it, but it's releasing micro stressors all the time because they're not in alignment. their actions and their feelings.
Right.
So we'll talk about that another time. But a lot of those people are not in alignment, or they've had other trauma in their life. I mean, they're not always horrible people. They grew up manipulating. They were taught to manipulate by their parents. Like, there's a lot of factors to this stuff. But the key is we're telling leaders, you better spot it, because it doesn't matter their trauma. They'll destroy you. And you better be aware.
Talking about like your feelings not matching up to your actions, the movie Me, Myself, and Irene. Have you seen that? Jim Carrey. I mean, he's this police officer, and he's just nice to everybody, and everybody takes advantage of him, including his wife, his coworkers, his neighbors, and he snaps. And it's obviously very exaggerated. It's Jim Carrey, right? So, but it really, if someone were to hold in all of their emotions and just smile through everything and just kind of fake it, they're going to implode at some point.
That's exactly what it is. Yes.
I think we should do an episode on that. I think it's huge that people, you hear like, I think one of the kind of newer things to say is live your truth, all that kind of stuff. But there's something to that.
Yeah. So just quickly, we're coming to a close, folks. We're so glad you've stayed with us. I have a Me, Myself, and Irene story, but I'm going to tell you that off the air, Kristin.
Okay.
It's pretty funny, but just because of time, folks. So let's look at just many cases of examples, some examples we see all the time. Sports teams losing coaches to assistants. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And maybe the assistants are going to the front office and complaining. Founders betrayed by early investors. Have you ever heard of someone lose their company? They literally found a company and then they get booted out.
Facebook?
Well, there's tons. There's tons of stories about that.
That's one of the bigger ones.
Political aides leaking to the media to destroy someone. You hold power a lot of times as a follower, especially if it's confidential information. You can leak that. That happens all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Volunteers turning activists when not promoted. In other words, they're your big supporter, but now they're your competition, or they're undermining you. Churches losing pastors to internal coups. We see that all the time. Family businesses, loyalty fractures. And that was a little bit, that first story I told about that store, that was actually a family member of that person.
Brutal. That takes it up a notch.
Well, look at Judas. He kisses Jesus. He's one of the 12 disciples, right? Sometimes it's the people closest to us who betray us the most.
Absolutely brutal. Leadership will always test loyalty, and loyalty will always test leadership.
Yeah, and remember this, folks. Your job isn't to eliminate betrayal. You can't. Now, sometimes people need terminated, but we're talking about just this undercurrent of betrayal. You can't always eliminate it. Your job is to build a culture where disloyalty feels uncomfortable and loyalty feels rewarded. As a matter of fact, a really good leader that has a good culture, the other employees will call this person out. They will stop the gossip. They will stop the undermining. And this is a principle that I always adhere to, Kristin. If somebody come to me and they wanted to complain about their manager, I would tell them, have you been threatened? Are you physically? And they would say no. I would say, I had a few questions. Are you being harassed physically, emotionally, sexually? If not, we're bringing your manager in to have this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Can't break that chain of command. Nothing drives me more crazy.
You can't. And if you start undermining your middle managers, you're ruined. You're ruined.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Real loyalty probably happens in royalty also. Doesn't just follow, it protects. Think about that. Someone that is protecting you. You might not even realize that. Want to analyze those that work for you.
Yeah, that is very true. Guys, we hope you have enjoyed this episode, because I sure have. I felt like I vented a little bit, Kristin, on this one. Oh, yeah. And I'd like to thank Preparation H, of course, for the sponsorship. Kristin, we are growing and we're really excited, and we've had some older episodes. So guys, if you are going into leadership or you're just interested, go back. people are learning how to use podcasts, and you can go back and watch any episode. And we had last week like 40 or 50 people went back and watched or listened to episode number 2, Help I Hired a Dud, or number 3. And Kristin and I were kind of amazed.
Because we didn't promote it.
There
So
was
we're like,
there was a
what?
couple others. So apparently when you listen, it must put it back in the algorithm. Now, I'm sorry there was one that I did promote, but even when I did that, it was only to a couple people, but it must put it back out there. So if you find a topic that you're interested in, look it up. But Kristin, how can people help us grow the podcast?
Yes, absolutely. The most important thing we need you to do is subscribe if you have not already. Share this podcast wherever you can. And please go in and review us. Those reviews make a big impact for us. And also you can find us on social media, and we have a Facebook group. We're pretty much everywhere. So give us a like, follow, share, all of it.
Yep. And if you're being betrayed, hang in there. It's tough. It's lonely. But you can get through it. You can get through it.
And absolutely.
All right, everybody, be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.